We're learning the Sicha on Chai Elul, Chelek of Daled, on page 177. The Shir today is being learned L'Nishmas Rabbi Yosef ben Yamin ben Menashe Koltman. The Sicha begins with an introduction on page 177. Betur Hagdame zu Habala Kaman, as an introduction to what we'll be learning here in the Sicha. Muvanu Pashut as Beroiva and Yanim Kekulam. It's self-understood that in most matters is da klolos inyan. You have the concept in its general sense. Und sein Teichen und Akude Pnimis. Then you have the essence of the matter. Und seine Pratim. Then there are details of pratim and subdivided further into details. Ubemyuchad in Aza inyan ikri v'chayelol. Especially, and definitely it's true regarding such a special day like Chai Elul, that you have the essence of the day and then many other details that are connected and come from it. And first and foremost, even by just meditating on one detail of the day, this brings into memory also the content and the essence of the day, and that this should be brought down, it should be applied in a conclusion and an action. Action is what matters most. So regarding the day of Chai Elul, was lekaman, here, as we'll learn in the Sicha, kum tashakal v'tarye b'teirasa Baal Shem Tov. There is a lengthy discussion in explaining a Torah of the Baal Shem Tov, welches gesagt geworden in einem von the Chai Eluls, which was said in one of the birthdays of the Baal Shem Tov of Chai Elul. Is das la'achrei v'yosem l'negadena v'yizbainin in the nekuda pnimisha b'zeh. So this discussion only comes after one should first put it in front of his eyes and meditate on what really the essence of the day is about. Which is expressed in the name of the day. Its name in Lashon HaKodesh that expresses what the essence of the day is. Chai Elul. And to quote what the Friediger Rebbe said about the day and the name of the day, Chai Elul. Aleph number 1, Chai Elul is der Tag, was hat gebracht und bringt a Leben in Elul. It's the day that has brought and brings life into Elul. Beis, Chai Elul git a chayes in the Aveda von Ani l'deidi v'deidi li. Chai Elul gives vitality in the Aveda serving Hashem based on the pasuk Ani l'deidi v'deidi li being the Rosh Tevis of the name of the month, Elul. We can possibly add to this as the Aveda Klolos von Ani l'deidi, the general Aveda of the month of Ani l'deidi, one turning to Hashem, Ani l'deidi, I am my beloveds, welche bringt dem Klolos inyan von v'deidi li, that brings the general response of Hashem, that our beloved Hashem connects to us, teilt sich in die Pratim, welche sind euch merum ist, bei Rosh Tevis von Elul. So it's divided into details, which are also hinted in the name of the month, in the name Elul, in the Rosh Tevis of the month. Elul is Rosh Tevis, ino liyodoi v'samti loch, that Hashem has prepared for you and has designated for you, and this is referring to a situation where a person kills someone accidentally, and there are the cities of refuge that one has to go to and remain in. Inyan Ari Miklat, the cities of refuge. U'ba'avedas ha'adam, zeo kav ha'teireh. This pasuk hints to the category of learning Torah that one should be involved in more in the month of Elul. Ki divrei Torah kailten heim. As the Gemara says, that the words of Torah are like a place, a city of refuge that absorb a person in it. That's the first category that the world stands upon. The three categories of Torah, Aveda, and Gemilas Chasadim. Elul is the second category, Rosh Tevis, Ani l'deidi v'deidi li, being the Rosh Tevis of these words, Ani l'deidi v'deidi li, which is Kava Aveda Hiatfilah, referring to serving Hashem, which is in davening. Today, the only Aveda that we have is not the Aveda of the Karbanis in the Beis HaMikdash, but the Aveda of the heart serving Hashem and davening. Davening creates a bond and connects Yidden to their Father in heaven. And the third category hinted in the Rosh Tevis of Elul. Elul is Rosh Tevis Ishler Re'eu U'matanis Lavyanim. Man to his fellow, and he gives gifts to the poor, which is Kav, the Gemilas Chasadim, the adding of Gemilas Chasadim in the month of Elul. Ubeturak domas v'yisoid l'chol kaven elu, and as an introduction and as a foundation to all of these categories, Elul is also Rosh Tevis and Mo'avai lekecha es levavcha ve'es levav zarecha, that Hashem will circumcise your heart and the heart of your descendants, which is Inyan HaTshuvah. This is the Avodah of Tshuvah that one begins with and as a foundation to the whole Avodah of the month of Elul. So as we learn here the Sicha, the introduction here is to put us in the right frame of mind. Yosim lenegadena v'yizbainen, that everything that we'll learn here is to take to heart and to apply in the month of Elul with all the Rosh Tevis, and especially the Chai Elul, the life and vitality in this Avodah of the month of Elul. So let's begin. Chai Elul is the Yom Heledes from the Shnei HaMa'oris Agdalim. The day Chai Elul is the birthday of the two great luminaries. Montik Chai Elul Tov Nun Ches is the Yom Heledes from the Baal Shem Tov. On a Monday, on Chai Elul in the year Tov Nun Ches is the birthday of the Baal Shem Tov. On Mittwoch, Chai Elul Tov Kuf Hei is the Yom Heledes from Rabbeinu Azaken. On a Wednesday, Chai Elul in the year Tov Kuf Hei is the birthday of the Alter Rebbe. That Inyan, this point, as in Yom Heledes von a Tzadik is as man von Simcha, that the birthday of a Tzadik is a day of joy, steht bekame mekaymes bechazal. It says clearly in a few places in Chazal. Befrat legabi Yitzchak Avinu or Moshe Rabbeinu. Specifically, we find it spelled out regarding Yitzchak Avinu and Moshe Rabbeinu. Biz as das hat aufgetan bepoil b'maiser Rav, to the point that the day of a birthday of a tzaddik has an effect in the world of action, which is the most important. Wie steht in Medrash, as the time was mit dem Mishkan aufgestellt später und nicht gleich nachdem es fertig geworden. Why, when the Mishkan was finished and ready to be built, was it not immediately put up, but it was delayed to a later date? So the Medrash answers, because Hashem had the idea to join the joy of putting up the Mishkan with the day of the joy of the birthday of Yitzchak. It's on Rosh Chodesh Nisan that Yitzchak was born. So Omer HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hareini ma'arif simchaschem simcha b'simcha. I'm joining your simcha of building the Mishkan with the joy of the day of the birth of Yitzchak. Nachmer, furthermore, we find as the Yom Heledes of Moshe Rabbeinu, Zayin Adar. So we find regarding the birthday of Moshe Rabbeinu on the day of Zayin Adar had gepoilt and bittul gzeres Haman was es ausgefallen of Chodesh Adar. That this is what annulled the decree of Haman that was in the month of Adar. As the Gemara says that v'lo hoya yideya shebeshiva ba'adar meis ubeshiva ba'adar noilad. That Haman was not aware of the fact that yes, it's the day that Moshe Rabbeinu passed away, but it's also the day of the birth of Moshe Rabbeinu, and that's schus annulled the decree. Afal Pikei, but although we find this already clearly in Chazal, but gefind ben it, we don't see as the Yom Heledes alver na Yom Tov v'Yom Simcha begalui bepirsum. That a day of a birthday of a tzaddik should become a Yom Tov, and it should become a day of joy. That's a joy for people, for everybody, for the public. In anhage b'maisa b'poyel l'chol Yisrael, in the conduct and the behavior of everybody for all Yidden. Now, b'negei l'Zayin Adar is regarding Zayin Adar, the reason why the celebration of the birthday is not as it should be for the birthday of a tzaddik. Al pi Shulchan Aruch Zayin Adar. It's a day of fasting, actually, because of the day. It's also the day that Moshe Rabbeinu passed away. But when it comes to the birthday of both the Baal Shem Tov and Alter Rebbe, on the day of Chai Elul is Nizgale geworden al Yidei Nesidereinu b'Shem Aviv k'vei Kedushas Admor Mashab Nishmaseiden. The Friediger Rebbe revealed in the name of his father, the Rebbe Rashab, as das is a Yom Simcha. It's a day of joy, biz ba'amiras gut Yom Tov, to the point that one wishes on this day, like an Yom Tov, good Yom Tov. On the Rebbe, the Shver, hat dem Yom Tov megale gewähnt zu alle Yidden. And the Friediger Rebbe revealed and spoke about this Yom Tov and publicized it for all Yidden. This was in the year of Tafshin Gimel, when the Friediger Rebbe first revealed the content and the Yom Tov of the day of Chai Elul. Und wie bald, as in Yonim, verbunden mit Teires and Bediuk, since matters related to Teires are all precise, is move on, so it's understood as the Simcha, the Elul, from the Yom Heledes b'Chai Elul, that the joy and the greatness of this day of Chai Elul is nicht nur, weil durch den Baal Shem Tov und Alten Rebbe hat sich aufgetan, a nahe Gilui und Teire v'Avedas Hashem. It's not only the joy of the fact that the Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe brought a new revelation in Torah and in serving Hashem, which is the Gilui from Torah Chassidus HaKlolis, the Torah Chassidus Chabad to Klal Yisrael, revealing the Torah of Chassidus in general, and specifically by the Alter Rebbe, the Chassidus of Chabad for all Yidden. Nor oich val the Chiddush inyan asimche b'yayim hiledes, but also this point itself, to reveal the joy that there is on the day of a birth, is verbunden b'myuchad mit dem Baal Shem Tov und Alter Rebbe in Teires Achsidish and Esgal Sal Yodam. This is uniquely connected to the Baal Shem Tov and Alter Rebbe and the Torah of Chassidus that's revealed through them. Und noch mehr, furthermore, the Shaykhis is to Zebede zusammen. The connection of the idea of a birthday and what's so great and what's the joy of a birthday is connected to both the Alter Rebbe, the Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe together. In the expression that the Rebbe Rashab said regarding the day of Chai Elul, Heint is the Yom Haledes von unsere Shnei HaMa'oris HaGdolim. That today is the birthday of our two great luminaries. Das heißt, als die Nekuda se'enje von Otam Yom Haledes drückt sich aus durch beide Ma'oris HaGdolim zusammen. That the point of the greatness of this day, of the birthday, is the birthday of both the luminaries together, the Baal Shem Tov and Rabbeinu HaZaken. So what's the connection of the birthday of a tzaddik, that this is being revealed and publicized, specifically in connection to the birthday of the Alter Rebbe, the Baal Shem Tov that is, and the Alter Rebbe? Das Verstehen behekt dem Habir bepashtus in was es besteht the simcha b'yom haledes. Let's first understand and explain on a simple level what is the joy on a day of a birth. Eide der Kind wird geboren, wenn gefindt sich noch b'mei imai, before a child is born, when he's still in his mother's womb. Hat alle evarim bis euch seides v'tzipronayim. So he has all limbs and all organs, including hair and nails as well. Noch mehr, furthermore, by im is euch voran tnuas evarim. There's even the movements and the functionality of the limbs. Eichel mimashima echeles, he eats from his mother. V'sheise mimashima sheise, he drinks from his mother. Nazei weiter. So there's movement and motion and functionality in the body of the baby in the mother's womb. V'adarabe, and even on the contrary, b'shas is b'mei imoi is that in gewisse Sachen starke vilachrische neulat. In certain matters, he's actually in a stronger position than after he's born. B'mei imai is a shomer from yani hasdik chulu. In the b'derech memela yidei imai. In the mother's womb, he's protected from any harm by being automatically with his mother. Masha'enke nachdem wie wird geboren, which is not the case after he's born, darfen haben verschiedene Histadlusen v'tirche as soll sein bari v'shalom. So there's effort and exertion to be sure that the baby is taken care of and to be fully healthy. Kanal also, eating is no effort. Making sure that the baby has his nutrition is just automatic with the mother's food that the baby eats and drinks. But after the baby is born, is das verbunden mit tirche. So here there's an effort. This could even be something painful for the child as well. Definitely, the negei l'ruchni is by Eden regarding the spiritual state of the baby in the mother's womb, that in the mother's womb the baby is on a much higher level. Der tinik b'mei imoi is ner dolokal roishai, as the Medrash describes in the mother's womb, or the Gemara describes, the baby has a candle burning on its head, which means that there's a revelation of the Shechina. He can see from one end of the world to the other. He's being taught the entire Torah. As soon as he comes out into the atmosphere in the world, an angel comes and hits him on his mouth, and that causes him to forget all of the Torah that he learned. And only later, and only when he begins to speak, his father begins to teach him Torah, teaching him the pasuk of Torah Tziva, und später ben Chomish leMikra, und ben Esel leMishnah Chulu at the age of 5 to learn Chomish, and then 10 to learn Mishnah, bis can zukommen zu the Shleimus limit at Torah von ben Arbaim lebina. Till finally, after many years, at the age of 40, coming to the completion of learning Torah at the age of 40, bina, where one can understand Torah properly. Unar amiyot kum zu lamet kol Torah kula. Only a very small minority can actually achieve to learn the entire Torah. So now the question is doch der Yom Ledes a gewaltige Yeride legabe der Matze wie es als über b'mei imay. The child being born is a great, tremendous descent from the place and the condition that the baby is in the mother's womb. Was is the simche von Yom Ledes? So what's the great joy of the birthday of the child? So the explanation for this is move on von dem Chelek zwischen an Ubar und an Neilad in Halacha. It's understood by what's explained in Halacha, what is the difference between the fetus and once the baby is born. B'lashon Rashi, to use the language that Rashi says in the Gemara, kol zman shelo yotza la'avera olam, as long as the baby is not yet born in the world, lav nefeshu, he is not an independent soul, there's no independent life yet. In the case where the child is endangering the mother, so you may kill the child to save the life of the mother, because it's not yet an independent life. Only when the head emerges into the world, that's when the child is a nefesh, a life on its own. At that point, you can't kill him for the sake of saving the life of the mother, because he's born, and you can't kill or take away one life for the sake of another life. So this haste, what we see here in what it says in Halacha, the baby in the mother's womb has all 248 limbs, and this function, this movement, is lav nefesho, but he's not defined as life, as a independent live being. Weil the Gede von a lebendige Nefesh is, how do we define a living person? As eine nit kein zwei besondere Sachen. That's life where it's not two entities. Aleph, a Metzias von a Guf, an existence of a body, was Beis in im gefindt sich Nefesh und Chayes Nefesh. And this body has and contains within it life, the life of a soul. Via Chayfetz was liegt in a Keli, as an object that is lying in a container. That's not the definition of the life of the physical body, that the life of the body which remains a dead being, contains within it a nefesh which gives it life. That's not what it is. Nor das is ein lebendige Metzias. Life is when the nefesh enlivens the body, that it's one live entity, that the body is alive by the soul. Mashenken anubar, which is not the case with the fetus in the mother's womb, is ein nefesh chayes nit seine, no shalimai. As much as there's all limbs and all organs and it's alive, it's functioning, but it's not his life, it's the mother's life. Und der Rebbe wird nicht angerufen nefesh, lav nefesh, so therefore he's not defined in halacha as a nefesh, because it's not he that's alive, it's the mother's life that's flowing through it, through the fetus. Und das ist die Simche bei Yom Ledes b'chol shana v'shana. So this is the great joy on the day of a birth every year. Weil das ist der Tag, wenn ist geworden als selbstständige, lebendige Metzias, Nefesh. Because this is the day when he became independently alive, that it's his life, that Hashem grants him a life at being a Nefesh, independent, alive being. Abizeh, move on, was der Inyan von Yom Ledes als Yontif is mudgish by the Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe. With this, we can understand why the day of a birthday is very much highlighted by the birthday of both the Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe. Well, das ist the Nekudas HaChiddush from Teres HaChassidus, because this point of a birthday is the point of the novelty of what Chassidus brought into the world. Chassidus HaKlolis from Baal Shem Tov zusammen mit Chassidus Chabad, was is Nizgala geworden, al Yedei Rabbeinu HaZaken. Both the general Chassidus brought by the Baal Shem Tov together with Chassidus Chabad that was revealed by the Alter Rebbe. This is Yedua, so it's known what's explained. This Alter Rebbe explains this in Torah as Golus is Nimshul Ibor. Exile is compared to a time of pregnancy. The redemption of Yidden through Mashiach that will be speedily in our days is compared to a birth. Und wie bald das Teres Chassidus ist Torah Me'achayim Zocha von Gula, Achane v'Akdame zu der Gula. The Torah of Chassidus is a taste for those that merit of the Gula. It's a introduction, a preparation of Gola. Durch Yifutza Meinesecha Chutza, by spreading the well springs of Chassidus outward, Hafatzas Chassidus Chutza, is Osimar Dol Malka Mashiach, that's what brings the coming of Mashiach. Mashiach had geantwortet dem Baal Shem Tov, as Mashiach himself told the Baal Shem Tov when he asked the question of Emesai Osimar, is move on, so it's understood as Chiddush, Teres Chassidus, is me'en dem Gilush Bezman HaGula Inyan Aleida. So the revelation of Teres Chassidus is similar to the revelation of the redemption, which is compared to a birth. So how does this apply to a Yid's Aveda in this world? Kiyum ha-Torah mitzvahs can sein of tzvei efanim. Fulfilling Torah mitzvahs could be in one of two ways. Aleph, der limud ha-Torah v'kiyum ha-mitzvahs and anoifin, as der Yid und die Torah mitzvahs sind in zwei Sachen. When one learns Torah, fulfills mitzvahs, but the Yid and the Torah mitzvahs are two entities. Is a fromme Yid, he's an observant Jew, is reingetan in Limud Torah und is medaktik b'mitzvahs kaleke b'chamura, is very involved in learning and is very careful with any mitzvah, an easy, simple, light mitzvah and a more important mitzvah. It's all something that he focuses on very much. Is a b'margish as is da an a metzias b'fnei atzmai von Torah mitzvahs. However, the feeling of the person is that there is a self, there's an I, that exists, that's separate from the Torah mitzvahs, lernen Torah mekayim mitzvahs, and it's he that is learning Torah and doing mitzvahs. Biz as is an mamshich in chayim, and the Torah mitzvahs brings in him, in this entity that exists, life. Zeveren chayenu v'arich yemenu, it becomes his life and his entire lifetime. Weil being the wisdom and will of Hashem, the source of life. But it's life that's being drawn and brought into him as an entity. That's the sense that the person feels that he exists. Das is me'en von ibur. This kind of observance of Torah mitzvahs with this feeling and attitude is similar to the time of pregnancy. Atinik b'me'imai, the fetus in the mother's womb, was der ubar atzmai chach hat alle varim v'chulu. So the baby, there are all the limbs. Says do lebendige metzias, and he is alive. Is aber der chayis der leben nit seine nor shalimai. But it's not his life though. It's the mother's life that's flowing in him. Zainai varim atzmam him kemesin. His limbs, as far as they are concerned, independently, what are they? They're like dead, no life at all. So here as well, there can be a Yid that's fulfilling Torah mitzvahs with a lot of energy and a lot of vitality. But really, when you look deeper into the person, you'll see that his attitude is that I exist, and I'm a person, and it's the life of Torah mitzvahs as a separate entity that's being brought and being flowing through him. That's still an Aveda that's compared to pregnancy. Beis, the Baal Shem Tov had megale o madgish gewend. The Baal Shem Tov revealed and emphasized the pnimius v'amitis von einoid mulvadai. What is the true meaning of the Hashem being the only existence and there's nothing other than Him? As is nitok kein mitzias zulasi is barach. That there's nothing that exists besides Hashem. Ubemele zen nitot zwei Sachen. So therefore, when a Yid does a mitzvah, learns Torah, there are no two entities. A mitzias, der Mensch, welche is mekayim Torah mitzvahs. The existence of the person that is fulfilling Torah mitzvahs. Varam es is nita a mitzias eisa dem Eibishten. Because in truth, there is no existence other than Hashem Himself. There's only one thing. Der Eibishter, Teirasai u'mitzvaysav shuhu chochmasai retzayna yachad. It's Hashem and His Torah mitzvahs. And Hashem and His wisdom and will are all one and the same. Ubemele is da ein mitzias. Sein Leben is Torah mitzvahs. There's just one entity here. The life of the person which consists of, which is just the Torah mitzvahs. The dugmas inyan aleida. This is the concept of birth in a person's Aveda, as ved geboren mit zwei Sachen. When the baby is born, so here it's not two entities. Aguf mit hanefesh in them. The body and the life that flows through him. Not ein lebendige Zach. What happens at the time of birth is that now it's a body which is alive. It's one entity, and that is the life of the body is that it's the body is alive, that it is alive. It's one entity mamish. And that's what happens when a Yid recognizes the true Einaid Mulvadai, so he sees and knows that who is he? He is part of the Torah mitzvahs of Hashem. And as the Rebbe elaborates here now, und das ist mudgish beloschen Chazal ani loy nevreisi. The Lashon that Chazal tell us in the Mishnah at the end of Kedushin, according to one version, is that ani loy nevreisi means siz nitok ken bria from mitzias Adam. I do not exist. I'm not created. Ella nor was is bashafen geworden. What is it that does exist? What is it that was created? L'shamish es kaini. Sein mitzias is was that is mishamish es kaini. His entire existence is just this, that it serves its master. In order that the will of Hashem, the wisdom of Hashem should be applied in the world, the learning of Torah and fulfilling mitzvahs, the Yid exists in this world to fulfill this. That is what his very existence is. That's the definition of who he is. The ability to fulfill the Torah mitzvahs of Hashem. What's the true definition of his existence? Not that he exists independently, and then he utilizes his existence to serve Hashem. His entire existence is a detail in how Hashem's will be actualized, will be fulfilled. Through the person, the will of Hashem is fulfilled. That defines his entire existence. To bring an example for this from a halacha, which is relevant for something in action. A person that carries on Shabbos, and the food that you carry in order to be chayev for the hitzot, and when you carry out from a private domain to a public domain, the food has to have a minimum size that of its minimum usage that one would be liable for this. So if you're carrying out a piece of food that's less than that amount in a keli, in a vessel, which is a nice size vessel, pater af ala keli sha keli tfeli loy. So then the person will be exempt for this carrying if the food is less of the amount, because even the keli that's containing the food is not as a separate entity. It's just there to contain the food. So what do we see from this? The way to understand this halacha is as follows. Hot just the keli, hot ashir. The vessel itself does have a certain amount that it could be used for something. If this vessel would be carried out separately, so one would be chayiv for carrying this out on Shabbos. But now that the keli is being used to carry out this food item in it, so then the Torah is saying that this is not really an entity for itself. It's just being used. It's there for the food. And the food is less than the size needed to be chayiv. Is the hitzah kailul oich sakeli nitken hitzah. So there is no act of carrying something out here on Shabbos which requires this minimum amount. It's not considered at all to be an action of carrying out something of a size that would be chayiv. Or in Vibalt, as the kavanah for zanareis in the keli is to leave the eichlin. The whole point of carrying out the keli here is not for the usage of this keli, but it's for the food. Is das die metzias hakeli la mitasa. This is the true existence of what the keli is. The keli wird a tail from the eichlin. It's like the vessel, the container, becomes a part of the food itself. That's what it's, since it's there, just serving to hold the food, that's what the keli is. It's not an entity for itself. So therefore, he's going to be pater for this. So here you see, the same thing could be applied in Aveda. When a person, his entire life, who is he? He's a tail. He's an extension of just there to fulfill what Hashem wants. Not that he exists and he does what Hashem wants. He's here in order for the mitzvah to be fulfilled. That's defined his entire existence. Other than that, he doesn't exist at all. That's the true Aveda in life, in birth, when a person, the life of Torah, becomes the very entity of who he is. Und then setzt sich euch dem Keshet zwischen dem Yemeledes von Baal Shem Tov und dem Yemeledes von Alter Rebbe. And here we see the connection between the birthday of the Baal Shem Tov and the birthday of the Alter Rebbe, that it goes together as one thing. And you see this also in the birth of a baby. Der Chiddush von Anoilad was wird an Nefesh de Gemetzias. What happens when a baby is born, that he becomes a life, an entity of life, his own life, is nit nor mitzad and klolis inyan achayis. It's not only regarding the general existence of life, nor be'ikir verbunden mit die Pratim. But this is expressed primarily, actually, in the details of the function of the life of the baby born. Das Sanuber is nit kein Nefesh, und is not a Tafel und Prat von Yerechimai. The fact that the fetus in the mother's womb is not yet alive, and it's just there as part of and like the thigh of the mother, Zetzach das an beikir, and then, where is this expressed primarily? In the fact that the peulis from the chushin ve'varim, that you see that the senses and the limbs of the baby are not really functioning properly, separately. Wie die Gemara sagt dorten, as the Gemara describes, v'lama havla doime b'mei yimoi, to what is a baby compared in the mother's womb? Lepinkis mekupel, like a notebook that's folded, reishe ben birkav cholu, the head between the knees, he eats from his mother, and so on. What is this saying here? It's speaking about the particular function of the organs of the body of the baby. The baby has all of the evarim all perfectly in place. Reish, einayim, the oznayim, the head, the eyes, the ears. But it's reish mekupel umunach ben birkav, but the head is folded between the knees. She'enim mishamish klum. It does not function at all. It doesn't. The use, the expression of the keiches are not there. She'enim machasher b'mahara. He doesn't have the ability to think. The eyes that are there, but he does not see. And the ears that are there do not hear. So over here you see that the description in the Gemara regarding the baby in the mother's womb, that he's fully alive, but he lacks any functionality. So it's focusing on the particular organs of the baby, not only the general sense of the life that's not independent. And then so here is what happens when a baby is born and he becomes alive himself. Not only the life of the body, which is now separate and he is alive, not as that now begins also the activity of all senses and all limbs, each one separately in their place for what their function is. Und der Fahr benimshal zakmen as Elul is the yemeledes von shnei ha'ma'iris hagdolim b'chad ha'mechta. And therefore, applying this to the birth of Elul regarding the Baal Shem Tov and Alter Rebbe, the two great luminaries, this is together as one point, one birth sort of. Weil, because ki yedua, as known, b'shteit the chiddush von Rabbeinu Azaken mit zayin Teires Chassidus Chabad, oif Teires Chassidus HaKlalos and Baal Shem Tov. What is the addition in the Teires Chassidus of the Alter Rebbe, Chassidus Chabad, over the general Chassidus that was revealed by the Baal Shem Tov? In them was the Baal Shem Tov Atoiv Geton Achayis Kloli in Torah mitzvahs. The Baal Shem Tov brought life, general level of life in the fulfillment of Torah mitzvahs. How was this? Durch ein Gilui haneshama von jeden Yidden, by revealing the identity of the neshama of a Yid, was bechlalos, hat sich das ausgedrückt in the minyan von Emunah. Generally speaking, this was expressed by the fact that the Baal Shem Tov revealed the Emunah, the faith of the Yidden, of the neshama. And that's the general life of the identity of who the Yid is. Hagam, as the koyach ha'emunah, nem durach ala koyches ha'nefesh. Although that power of the belief of a Yid is something that has an effect on all of the faculties of the person, poilt oiv zei in an eifem von chayes, and it brings life in them, not just as a level of a light that shines from the amunah, but it actually brings internal real life. Was nemt ze durch, and it permeates the commission of tzaddik be'amunasa yichya, that a tzaddik lives by his amunah, by his faith in Hashem. Is es aber nit machriach as the chayes amunah nemt durch jeden koyach euch in inyan noi haproti. However, the Munah itself doesn't necessarily cause that this will permeate each individual limb and organ and part of the life of the person relating to its particular nature, on its level for what it is in its world. Nor the Ina Klali von jeden Koyach, was es verbunden mit der Nekudus HaMunah von der Neshama. Rather, in the level of a Munah that does permeate and affect the entire life of the person, it's that aspect of all of the faculties of the person which respond to and are related to that general amunah, but not within the world of that aver or of that function in itself, that it should be permeated in its nature with the truth of the life of the neshama. And as an example for this, the amunah can zayin, the belief of a yid can be to the degree nitna boifem makif, that it doesn't just remain something which is makif, meaning that it's something that you believe in, but it has no effect on your behavior. Was ganve apumachtarta rachmana karya, as described in the Gemara, that even a thief, as he's digging a cave under someone's house to go and steal money, he calls out and davens to Hashem, which means he believed. That's why he's davening, for Hashem to help him succeed in what he's doing. But at the same time, it doesn't affect his behavior. As he's davening, he's doing something, navera, against what Hashem wants. So that's an extreme example where the Amunah remains something which is true in the essence of who the person is, but it doesn't actually permeate and affect his behavior. But no, es nemt im durch euchen an hage bepeil. The Amunah also does have an impact on a person's behavior, to the point that this has an effect on the person's perspective. As tmur that instead of the fact that a person should see the world as a physical entity that exists for itself, that exists as a contradiction to its true spiritual existence, and as a contradiction to godliness. The Emunah of the Yid has the effect as a zetnit b're'iyas ayin loy b'sari velt als astirit zu alakus, that he doesn't see the world in his perspective. Looking at the world, he doesn't see the world as a contradiction to godliness. He sees the world as a place which belongs to Hashem and is all godly. That's the great effect of Emunah to the extent of how a person perceives the world around him. However, the Emunah poilt abinit as a zolzen dem koyach hapoil benifal. The Emunah does not yet have the ability to affect a person to the point that he should see the power of the Creator within the world itself, invested in every detail of nature, of what the world is, to see in it, within the nature of the world, that this is an expression of godliness. To see that within the world, the Emunah will not have this kind of effect. Al derech v'dechayes klali, das was der Mensch lebt. The example of life regarding the life of the person, that the baby that's born, that the baby that's born, he's alive, in the general sense of life. Das nimmt durch alle Evarim und das wird vereinzigt mit sie. The life, when a baby, a person which is alive, every limb of the body is alive, and it's not life which is separate of the body, but the body itself is alive. Das ist aber nicht verbunden mit dem Inyan Prati von jedem Ever. However, this general life is not the expression of life relating to the particular function of each limb and its place in its world. Rather, each limb is also just a part of the general life of the person, that he is alive. That's the nature of Emunah as well, with the great impact that Emunah has on the life of a person, on his behavior, on his perspective. But nevertheless, Emunah does not affect and change the feeling and the experience within the nature of each particular Ever for what it is in its place. The Alter Rebbe hat aber mamshach gewen a chayes in jeden koyach von der Shama. The Alter Rebbe drew this down and brought down further the life of every koyach of the neshama, and in jede avede in Torah mitzvahs, and in all levels of a yid serving Hashem in Torah mitzvahs, euch mitzad der teuchen proti von dem koyach, that it should be felt and experienced and be expressed in the content of what this particular koyach here is in its world. Al derech for the chayes proti versus oisgemosten litten in your proti von jeden Ever, as it is with the individual level of life that's tailored and measured according to what this particular limb is all about in its world. As the Emunah kommt up, the level of Emunah comes down from that level of Emunah. It's drawn down und nimmt durch euch seichel adam. It should permeate the intellect of the person, bis sein seichel gufe versteht und is machriach alakos. That the seichel itself, when you ask it independently, how do you understand things within the world of intellect that has its rules of how it thinks and understands, that seichel itself comes and says that yes, that it concludes in that Elokus, that Eibishter is true. Bis jede Prat von der Yid is geworden an nefeshtiger mitzad inyon neu. To the point that every detail of the functions and the portions of the life of the Yid becomes completely soulful, is expressing with its nature, in its world, the life of the Yid. Beginning with a person's intellect of the soul. The Gili Elokos B'Seichel, godly revelation within a person's intellect, is be'ofen as an imver der Herd, as kol mitziyusai is auf zu verstehen Elokos, that the intellect itself concludes that who am I? What is this intellect all about? It's not a power that the person has which could be utilized for understanding godly matters, but his entire entity of the Seichel is for this, to express godliness through intellect. Und von dem Meichen kommt die Middes, kommen die Middes, and then from the person's understanding and his Meichen, this leads to the emotions that respond and are created according to a person's understanding. As is nirgash, and there the person feels and experiences as kol mitziyusa fun middes ha'ave is kidei as lo zayin avas Hashem. What is the entire existence of the capacity to love within a person? Is so that there could be an expression of love for Hashem. And the same is true with the middah, the emotion of fear or awe, and all other of the emotions of the person. Und demult is jeder koach mitzad in yon noya nefeshtige. Sein Leben is elokus. So then the life of the person, and the concept of life again is that he is alive, that it, in its inyan is alive, becomes completely soulful and permeated with life on its level. That was the addition of the Alter Rebbe, taking the life of the Baal Shem Tov in general and bringing it down to the inyan prati of each koyach. Und der Rebbe hat der Rebbe Nishmas Eden gesagt, and that's why the way the Rebbe Rashab spoke about the day of Chai Elul, he said, Heint is the Yemeledes von unsere Shnei Amoiris HaGdeilim. This is the birthday of our two great luminaries, B'chad Mechte, in one statement. Und erst danach, mefarish gewen, jeden einen b'fnei atzma. And only later that he spell out each one separately. But in the beginning, he speaks about both of them as one day of the birthday of the two great luminaries. Weil Yom Ledes, wie is negea zu jeden einen b'ofen galoi, bis as sagt beim Mittis, gut Yomtiv, zu Yidden, this day, the birthday, which is relevant for each Yid, and to the point that this is really truthful, that you wish another Yid good Yomtiv, es beschas, es ist da, der Gilui und Pulle von Teres Achsidis HaKlolis und Baal Shem Tov durch und zusammen mit Teres Achsidis Chabad al Yedei Rabbeinu Azoken. The full birth of life is when the life is not just in the general sense of life, but it is expressed in each individual limb and organ that expresses life there in each particular area. Val demol tutzuchayv. That's what's the full accomplishment of as a Yid vert a full ständige nefesh mitzias mit alle pratim. That now he is truly alive, and he's alive in all the details, within the world of every detail of what the life is. That's the general explanation for the connection of celebrating a birthday and the joy of the day of a birthday with the Chiddush of Teres Achsidis, Achsidis Chabad, which brings into the world the inyan of Leda, the birth, life, real life, which is experienced by being independently alive, that the person feels that there is nothing other than this life. That's what his entire entity consists of. Now here, the Rebbe will continue and explain how this is expressed in the Torah that the Baal Shem Tov said. Everything that tzaddikim reveal in the world is first and foremost expressed by a Torah that they said. Is euch der Inyan Anal in der Sheiches von der Baal Shem Tov mit den alten Rebben, setzt sich begolui Bad Goshe, in der Teire, was der Baal Shem Tov hat gesagt, B'Shabes Parshas Kisovai, Chai Elul B'Shnas, Tofresh Nun Beis. So the point explained here, the revelation of the Baal Shem Tov and how this is connected to the Alter Rebbe is expressed and is highlighted in the Torah that the Baal Shem Tov said on the day of Chai Elul in the year Tofresh Nun Beis. Now this was many years after the passing of the Baal Shem Tov, wie der Rebbe der Schwere erzählt, wegen sein Vater, der Rebbe Rashab, Friedige Rebbe that is related about his father, the Rebbe Rashab, der Rebbe Nishmas Eden, was hat gehört, die Zayin Teires, was the Baal Shem Tov hat gesagt, Yenem Chai Elul in Gan Eden. That the Rebbe Rashab that year heard the seven Teires that the Baal Shem Tov said that year in Gan Eden. Der erste Teire hat der Baal Shem Tov gesagt, Acha Kabbalah Shabbos auf dem Pasik, V'hoya Kisovai ala Aretz Geimer. The first Teire that he said was Friday night after Kabbalah Shabbos on the first Pasik in this week's Parsha, V'hoya Kisovai. Upirish, and he explained, Oretz. What is Lashon Merutze? The word Oretz means running, rushing. Ki b'teves Oretz yesh beis pirushim. There are two translations for the word Oretz, besides literally meaning a land, but Oretz has, the source of the word has another two explanations. Kedisa b'medrash, the Medrash says, Lama nikra shma Eretz. Why is the name of the land Oretz, the land? And this in the Lashon Kodesh, the word Oretz also means sheratzasa lasesh ritzon kaina, that it wants, it desires to fulfill the will of the Master of Hashem. And also the Eretz Lashon Merutze. And Eretz also means the running, the rush of the soul. Now, based on this, the Baal Shem Tov said, V'hoya kisavoy el haaretz, as du wirst zukommen zu dem Rotzen und Merutze, that if you'll come and you'll reach to that level of your soul, that desire and rush of your soul, this is a gift that Hashem gives you as an inheritance. This is the gift, this is an inheritance for every single Yid, this neshama, this level of the neshama. Darf sein die Aveda in them. What do you do with this? What is the Aveda of a Yid? You should settle in it. Bring that point of your neshama that it should be settled within yourself. And you take and you place into a basket. Bring down the revelation of the neshama. It should be contained in a container. And then when the pasuk speaks about a person traveling to any location, this speaks about Ashgacha Pratis, divine providence that brings a person in different places in life. And this is Hashem choosing where you're going. As a Yid geht in an Ort, is es nit was geht, no me feirtim, the Ashgacha al Yaina. If a Yid travels anywhere, it's not that he is traveling there, but he's being guided and taken by Hashem, by the Ashgacha al Yaina. Is as kommt in an Ort, is the kavana l'shakin shmoi sham. When you arrive in any location, the point and the purpose here is to bring Hashem's name to dwell there, lefarsim elokos ba'ilam, to publicize godliness in the world. That was the Torah of the Baal Shem Tov that was said on Friday night, Chai Elul Tofresh Nun Beis. Wie bald as die Torah is gesagt geworden al Yidei Baal Shem Tov b'yom Chai Elul. It was said on the day of Chai Elul through the Baal Shem Tov. Und das ist gehört geworden al Yidei Nesiye Chabad. It was listened to by the Nesiyim, the Rabbeim. Is move on, so it's understood, as in them is mudgish in the Kude und Chiddish von dem Tag von Chai Elul, in Yonif Baal Shem Tov on the Alten Rebbe. The point of what was brought into the world on the day of Chai Elul through the Baal Shem Tov and the Alten Rebbe is expressed here in this Torah. Die Yeshleima b'derech Efsher, as da seinen zwei in Yonim, was the Baal Shem Tov sagt. So if we look here into this Torah, we can see 2 points that the Baal Shem Tov says. Aleph number 1, V'hoya kisavei al haaretz du v'sukumen zu dem Rotzen und Merutze asher weile kechen neusen l'chon nachle v'rishta. For das is a matanim ul meile b'Yerusha b'cholechet mi Yisrael. When a Yid arrives to reveal and to come to that point of that desire and rush of the soul, which is a gift for every Yid. What is the Baal Shem Tov speaking of here? Das is Bechlalos, der Gilui von Teres Achsidus HaKlalis, was the Baal Shem Tov Adev Getan. This is expressing the general revelation of Teres Achsidus that the Baal Shem Tov accomplished, which is Gilui Ratzon Atzmishe B'Neshama, was es Faran B'Yed Yidin. Revealing the true essential will of every single Yid that the Baal Shem Tov revealed. Based, and the second part of the Torah, in der Aveda, was dav sein, was in dem sein. Then the Aveda, what a Yid has to do with this? V'yashafta ba. Das sein bis yashvos. V'lakachta geime v'samta batene. Mal b'zayin da'eris and kalim. To bring it down, that it should be settled, and it should be brought, to be contained within the person, is inyan Chassidus Chabad. This is expressing the Alter Rebbe's Chiddush of Chassidus Chabad, as the Rotzen und Merutze von der Neshama trokt men arab bepratius eures bekelim. That general point and power and will of the Neshama is brought down and it's dissected into the details as a light that comes into a vessel, that it should be in the world of the details of the person. Das wird erhält und aufgetan in jeden koach prati von dem Adam u Kanal. That this is something which is sensed and which is brought and accomplished within every particular organ and part of the faculties of the person, as explained before at length, the point of the Chiddush of the Alter Rebbe. And then is the Baal Shem Tov Madgish. And here, when you pay close attention to the words of the Dvar Torah here, the Baal Shem Tov is emphasizing, as does nit kein zwei Avedis ve'inyanim. It's not 2 different points, 2 separate Avedis. because the Baal Shem Tov does not say du sollst zukommen zu dem Ratzen u'merutzuchulu, that one shall work on coming to that point of the will of the soul, a zweite Sach, and then as a separate point, as darf sein, the Avodah zu herabtragen das bis Yashvas, the Avodah of bringing it down, settling it within the entity of the person. That's not what it says. No, rather what it says is, das ist gesagt geworden als ein Inyan. It's said here as one point, as one sentence, as one point, as the Lashon goes, as du vest zukemuchul, when it will be that you will come to that Ratzon of your neshama, then you will draw it down into a vessel. Meaning it's all one point. Das heißt, as by dir is geworden the Leda, when one comes to that birth of finding his life, finding who he is in his soul, es hat sich in sein Metzies Gufe angehört und ist Gale geworden, die Matana Momaile bi Yerusha b'cholechet mi Yisrael. Within his entity of who he is, he senses his true life, which is the gift, the inheritance of Hashem that's within every Yid, the Ratzon u'merutza shel neshama, the desire and the rush of the soul. Darf sein, die Avodah in them, malbish sein, die Eiris and Kalim. So then, what's done with this, it's bringing it down into to be contained as al upcoming in Chabad. It should be brought into the intellect, and then Val Yedei and the Chol Koiches Nafshe Kanal, and then to be brought in all of the other faculties of the soul. Und demult is the Shleimus Aleda. That is the completion of the birth, like with the fetus. Once the baby is born, the fullness of the soulful life of the child is that not only that he's alive in general, but every aver, every individual limb and organ functions individually and independently, and that's the real life of the Hamshacha, of bringing down the Baal Shem Tov's life into the details of life that the Alter Rebbe spoke about. Al Pizeh, based on this, Yesh Levayer, the Hemshech in the Teire, V'halachta al Amokim. The continuation of the Dvar Teire of the Baal Shem Tov is that you will go to a place. And what does this mean? Hu inyan Ashgacha Pratis. This is the fact that a person is brought to every place by divine providence. As a komten an art is the kavana l'shakin shmoi sham l'farsim l'kus bailam. Wherever a person arrives to, it's with the purpose to publicize godliness in the world. Now seemingly, what's the flow here? How does this point in the Dvar Torah connect to what was said before? And yes, it's true. This is connected to one of the fundamentals of the Baal Shem Tov's approach, that inyan when ashgacha pratis u'mefarsim zayin l'kus vu ayid kumt, the emphasis of divine providence and a Yid publicizing Hashem's name wherever he is. What's the connection though with the beginning of the Dvar Torah? A Yid reaching the essence of the soul, then bringing it down to be settled within a container, malbish the Eiris and Kalim. How is the point of Ashgacha Pratis in the second part, or in the third part really, of the Dvar Torah related to this? Now, in the Rishime, looking at the notes of what the Friedrich Rebbe spoke about regarding the Teiris of the Baal Shem Tov, wird erzählt wegen der zweite Teire. Was ist gesagt geworden, Achat Filis Arvis. The second Dvar Teire the Baal Shem Tov said Friday night after davening Ma'ariv. As Omar Oida Pama Teira Kedemes V'hoisif. That here the Baal Shem Tov said the Dvar Teire that he said already once before, and he added to it. And he said, V'hoya Kisavai. That, and it'll be that you will come, which means, Bichdei, in order to actually have the ability to reach to that will of the neshama, which every yid has as a gift. How is this? It's by a yid going and bringing Hashem's name everywhere. When one has self-sacrifice in publicizing Hashem's name everywhere in the world, that reveals within the person the true will of his neshama. What is the Mesiris Nefesh in them? What does the Mesiris Nefesh consist of? Mit ha-broche u-posik tilim. Wherever a yid goes to say a broche and a posik tilim by publicizing Hashem's name, that reveals the essence, the will of the neshama. That was the second Dvar Torah that the Baal Shem Tov said and added to the first Dvar Torah. So here we can see that the avodah of going in every place in the world and publicizing Hashem's name there is connected to the point of revealing the Ratzon of the Neshama, because that's how one will succeed in revealing the Ratzon of the Neshama. Das ist aber nicht maspik. However, this is not yet a sufficient explanation Levaya the Shaykhis von the Zwei Inyanim in the Torah HaAleph to explain the connection of the 2 points in the first Dvar Torah that the Baal Shem Tov said. Because as you see it in the way it's described, what the Baal Shem Tov said, Amar oida pama Torah kedemes v'hoisif, that he repeated the first Dvar Torah, but then he added, is mashma as the Haisafe b'Torah Shniya is an inyan b'Torah b'fnei atzma a Haisafe, not a hasber of the Torah Rishayna. That this is a new point, it's a new addition that the Baal Shem Tov said to explain the first Dvar Torah. But there is the context of the Dvar Torah, the first Dvar Torah, as it was said, in its order, and there it's not understood what the point of the Hashgacha Pratis and where a person goes is connected to the first point in the Dvar Torah. Additionally, even if we will say that the second Dvar Torah is an explanation for the connection in the first one, Al Pizeh is blois muvenes the shaychus von the shaken shmoi sham. Meister nefesh sein. Lefarsam lakusa ba'olam mit v'haya ki savai der ratzen was is b'matane v'yaderen was is klolos achilles from Torah Baal Shem Tov. The connection that you see here is that the point of revealing the will of the neshama of the Yid is connected to publicizing Hashem's name everywhere in the world. It's because that, by publicizing Hashem's name wherever you go, that brings the revelation of the neshama of the Yid, which was the chiddush of the Baal Shem Tov, revealing the neshama of the Yid. So that point of the connection of the Dvar Torah is clear. But nit mit den ikke praten der erste Torah, but with the main detail in the first Dvar Torah, you don't see the connection to the Hashgacha Pratis, which is der Inyan, was es darf sein bis Yashvos v'lakachta the Samta Batene, mal bezain the Eiris and Kalim, the Inyan von Arabtragenen Pratim Chabad. The second detail of the first Dvar Torah, which is related to the Chiddush of the Alter Rebbe, that is Chassidus Chabad, bringing it down, settling it in the Kalim and in the Mitzias of the person. How is the next point about Hashgacha Pratis related to that part in the first Dvar Torah, which is a main point in the Aveda of Chassidus Chabad? So we can explain and see here the connection, again, between the 2 points, the Vasamta Batene drawing down the Eiris and Kalim and the details of Chabad to the point of the Hashgacha Pratis and a person publicizing Hashem's name wherever he is. And going back to explain this by explaining first again another point about the difference between the Ubar, the baby in the mother's womb, and after the baby is born. The Chelek zwischen an Ubar und an Neilad, the difference between the baby in the mother's womb and once the baby is born, not only as far as the entity of the baby is for himself, and also and primarily in his relation to others, as an uber, the baby, everything that there is about him is all for himself. He's not yet in any position to have any influence on anybody around and outside of him. But when the child is born, every action that there is with the baby has an immediate effect on people around him. At the very first moment of birth, when the baby gives a cry, and the cry is heard by everybody outside, the movements of hand and feet, are witnessed and are observed and are experienced by everybody else around. So that's another important distinction between the baby in the mother's womb and once the baby is born. So therefore what we understand from this is als hem zu der Leide von a Yidden. Continuing, after we speak about the birth of a Yid. Now, what is the birth of a Yid? Das was sein Teire Mitzvahs und sein Chayes HaNefesh. Der Ratzen Merutzes Shal HaNefesh kommt dara bis in Eiris V'Kelim. The true birth of a Yid is getting to that point of his true life, his real will and his real rush of his life. And that is brought down to life in all the details of life, in Kelim. Brengt das b'meile euch der Pesam Malakos. That life is something that will have an effect in being publicized around him. As kommt der Härter, as the Kavana is, that wherever he is, he senses that what am I doing here? It's an automatic result in the nature of life. When a person is truly alive, then wherever he is, he feels that the point of life is to be extended and be publicized, that others should become alive by this. Just like it is with a baby that's born, the true expression of the fact that he's alive is expressed by the fact that it's not just he that's alive for himself, like when he was a baby in the mother's womb, but his life now and every movement of his life and every particular limb of that moves affects and is observed and is experienced by people around him. The time the Fumberuchnius, to explain this spiritually, why is this so? Why is this the definition and the expression of true life when it's observed and it affects those that are all around him? Der Chiluk von der Sach, was wird belebt von der zweite Sach, und a chayes atzmi is. What's the difference between something that is not really truly alive? That it's not that it is alive, but it's rather just receiving life from another entity, and something which has its own source of life, that it is truly alive, it is life. Azach was wird belebt von der zweiten, kann et mechai sein andere. Something that's not alive itself, it's just receiving life from another, cannot share that life, cannot bring true life to another entity. Dafke chai be'etzem ken von im sein chayes lahachyes. It's only something which it is, the essence of life. It's life. It's the source of life itself that can become a source of life to bring life to others. Es kommt zur zweite Sach, nimmt es durch und macht das Leben. When something is in essence alive, so then wherever it is, that life, wherever it goes, enlivens and brings life into everything. Und wie bald as a lekos Torah and mitzvahs is a chayes atzmi. So being that the life of godliness and the life of Torah and mitzvahs is the essence and the source of life, is b'shas das wird the mitzias von a Yidin, when this life becomes the entity of who the Yid is, that's the birth of the Yid, when he becomes that essence of life, das sein nefesh b'meile, wo a Yid geht, peilter und is mefarsem elokus po'ilam. So this is his life, this is his soul, this is who he is, and naturally, as a result, wherever he goes, he publicizes life and the truth of Hashem in the world. So the Ashgacha Pratis that the Baal Shem Tov speaks about, and that where a Yid goes, he publicizes Hashem's name, is not just a point for itself, the Chiddush of Ashgacha Pratis of the Baal Shem Tov, but it's a natural outcome of the birth and the life that you have in the first part of the Torah of the Baal Shem Tov, the life of the Yid, and the details of the life. True life is chai lahachyes, is spread and is shared and influences others. Now, Afapi, as der Inyan from Pirsam Alakus Ba'elam, Moetzachon Gaiden durch den Baal Shem Tov. So this, to publicize Hashem in the world, began by the Baal Shem Tov. Nach Eide, the Gilu Teres Chassidus Chabad, durch den Alten Rebbe. Before the Alter Rebbe revealed Chassidus Chabad. Kommt zu in der Pirsam Alakos, wie das ist la'achre, Gilu Teres Chabad, as the Eid is coming up in Kalim. But there's an addition to this point of publicizing Hashem's name in the world after you have the Chiddush of the Baal Shem Tov in Chassidus Chabad. Das Bara Bezeh, to explain this, why is there an added chayes here, something new that comes to the publicizing Hashem's name in the world through the Alter Rebbe more than the way it was by the Baal Shem Tov. The Reivtu von the Alter Rebbe mit Teres Chassidus Chabad, the accomplishment of the Alter Rebbe by Chassidus Chabad is nicht nur mit dem Ausgeteilkeit von Chabad Shala Adam von andere Koiches HaNefesh. It's not only the fact that the Alter Rebbe singled out the intellect of the person within the entity of the person, that's a very powerful koich in the person, to bring the amunah that it should come into the mitzias of the person, primarily in seichel. Und der Fahr is negeya as Teres Achsidus Alakus soll der head werden euchen sichlich Shala Adam, that it's relevant and it's important that Chassidus, which the Baal Shem Tov revealed, should be sensed and should be understood within the intellect of the person. It's not only this, it's not just a focus on Seichel for what the faculty of Seichel is. What's really behind this? Well, it's really the point of the Alter Rebbe drawing down the Amunah that the Baal Shem Tov revealed into the Seichel of the person. Nor the Kavanah is, because the point there is, what's the purpose of creation? Lastly is Barach, Dir B'Tachtainim, to create a dwelling within the entity of the low world. As soll der Head werden, as Einoid Mulvadoi in Mitzias Ha'olam u'Mitzad Ha'olam. That the world itself should sense and know the truth of Einoid Mulvadoi, that Hashem is the only existence, but this should be sensed not only as a revelation, some miraculous revelation from above, but the world itself, within its nature, and coming from the nature of the world itself, this should be sensed. Only bald as ascholas hametzias, was his nivdal kaviyachol from a lakusa seichel. Within the life of the person, where is the first level of an existence, which is, so to speak, separate of godliness, is a person's intellect, where there's a certain framework of rules, of logic, of how a person thinks. So this is the first level of an expression of the soul of a person, where there's a metzias, where there's an entity that thinks objectively, is l'chol reish negeya zu mazbezen anal in seichel, biz in seichel anushi. So therefore, the first place where you have the fulfillment of Dir B'Tachtainim is the person thinking with his seichel intellectually and even just thinking simply with the human brain to understand that he should see and come to the conclusion, Einheit Milvadi, the oneness and the truth of Hashem. Und durch dem, was euch Seichel Adam, der Herd, und anerkennt, Achtus Hashem anal. And when even the Seichel of the person can sense and can recognize the true oneness of Hashem, as explained before specifically. So we're talking over here, as the Rebbe highlights the word Hanal, realizing and seeing not that the world exists, but Hashem is brought into the world, the life of Hashem is in the world, but the whole existence of the world in the first place is all just godliness, the true Einheit Milvadai that the Baal Shem Tov revealed. Bis Ba'ifin, as es wird kol mit Yusuf von dem Seichel zu verstehen Elokus, that the person realizes that this is what his entire entity is. The Seichel, what is it all about? What is it? To understand godliness. Kumt das herab in Vashavesa Lavavecha. This is also then applied and brought down into the heart, in Midrash Belev, in a person's emotions. Was the Pe'ula B'Shleimus in Midrash Belev is when there's Kumt Durich Seichel Adam. When are a person's emotions really deep and real and complete? Only when it comes through a person's meditation and understanding. As the Rambam says, how does one come to love and fear Hashem? When he meditates and really understands in Seichel. And then from the emotions and the koiches hatachtonim and the other and lower faculties of the person, bis es wird Herd achtes Hashem in the ganze Welt ubechol in Yonei Olam. And then by extension from the person, this is brought into the world and all matters of the world. On the Rebbe, so therefore we understand there, Zetman, wie der Inyan von der Farse Molokus Ba'olam, that to publicize Hashem's name in the world, kommt als Hemshech und Aprat in der Oiftu von Chabad und Teres Achsidus HaKlolis, von Chabad in Teres Achsidus HaKlolis, v'lakachte goyme v'samta batena. We can see here how bringing down and publicizing Hashem's name in the world is not a separate Aveda. As explained before, that when a person is truly alive, then as a result, he brings it also into the world. But this is actually all one and the same point. The whole concept of Chassidus Chabad in the first place was as a fulfillment of Direh B'Tachtainim, because this is the first place within the entity of a person, which is Kaviyachos separate of a Lakus. And therefore you're bringing the oneness of Hashem there. That's an entity of a Tachtain within the person. And therefore by extension, it there then flows lower in the person, lower, till it comes into engaging with the world around him, bringing it into the world. Malbushain, Eiris, and Kalim. So that's the whole point of Chassidus Chabad, to bring it down into the world. So Kumtzu and Damachidish, so over here, there's a novelty, there's a greater level in this person, in publicizing Hashem's name in the world, by the fact that you have this influence by Chassidus Chabad. Was wenn Zetmen as das is Rotzen Merutze von Etzem Nefesh. In addition to the fact that when do you know that what a person is doing, a person's connection to the Eibishter, really stems from the essence of his soul? Was kommt darauf in Chabad, and this is coming down into a person's level of understanding. Nicht an Inyen, was ist verbunden mit sein Metzias Atainet. And when a person is understanding and is stimulated by the level of the intellect that he's understanding about godliness, it's not just an expression of him as an entity and his pleasure that he has. So when a person brings down Chassidus Chabad, in other words, the Amunah and the belief in the oneness of Hashem, that this should be understood even in a Seichel. Where do you see that it's not now just Seichel, which is to some degree detached of the essence of the soul? How do you know that it's really part of the expression of the essence of the soul? Dafke v'mezet as the mensch verbeugt auf der Aveda mit sich. So you can see this when the person is ready to bend away or to forgo on dealing just with himself, zayin askol in alakus, to be immersed just into his own understanding of godliness, or avedosai ba'ava v'yireh, his own personal serving of Hashem with love and fear. And he's ready to go out of himself and to share and to publicize for others the godliness, the greatness of Hashem outside of him. So when it's brought down from the point of Amunah into Chassidus Chabad, so where do you see that what's brought into Chabad is really not now about the person, about himself, but it's all furthering and just extending that essence of the soul? That's when he's ready to then take it to the next step, to bring it down to people outside of him. So you see it's not about himself. It's about the truth. It's about the Eibishter bringing it into the world. So therefore, the publicizing of the Eibishter's name in the world is that litmus test. It shows you, it's the siman of what's really going on in his Aveda. But furthermore, is oich b'negeya the Aveda gufe, but also regarding the nature of the Aveda itself. Kishem v'is negeya, as the person malakos mitzad ha'adam, zal geton werden b'chol koiches nafshay. Just as it's important that publicizing Hashem's name by the person should be something that permeates all levels of who the person is. As on the farsam zayin elokos ba'avone va'asage v'al yidei midosa v'shar koiches nafshay biz zu koyach ha'asiyah shaloi, that he should publicize Hashem's name. And it should be with all of the koiches that he has, with all of his faculties, with his emotions, and with all other koiches of his nefesh, including his action. Legen tefillin mit hayidin, which is putting on tefillin with another yid, unklappen a mezuzah b'pesach beisai, affixing a mezuzah to the doorway of a person's home, valderech ze b'shar mitzvahs, and similar with all other mitzvahs. So this is all continuing and bringing down the lakos from the nefesh itself, from the etzam nefesh, into the Chabad of the Nefesh and Avon of Asaga and all the other Keiches, until it all trickles down and comes down into action. Is al derech zeh, so similar as well, Negeya, auszunutzen jede Mittel, v'oifen, auf mefarsem seine Lokos, leit dem Matzav ha'meyuchot, shel b'chol zman b'chol mokim. It's also equally as important and relevant to utilize every medium and every way possible to publicize Hashem's name according to the unique conditions and nature of every place and time where a person is. Was durch dem is me mevarer meile euch der machshe v'inyin mesuyim in Welt lavedasi yisbarach. By this, one refines and elevates every particular nature and medium that there exists in the world, that it should become dedicated to serving Hashem. Because everything, every medium and everything possible, everything that exists, every piece of technology or whatever it may be that exists in the world is was only created for Hashem's glory. So the point that the Rebbe is saying here is that when one publicizes Hashem's name, just by the Torah of the Baal Shem Tov, the Amunah that the Baal Shem Tov brought and revealed in the soul of a Yid, so that brings the Amunah to flow within the person and then to flow within every level of the world, but it doesn't necessarily bring to publicize Hashem's name to the degree that you're looking to bring Hashem into the details within the nature and every medium that the world has in it. But when the focus here is to bring from the Etzem HaNefesh, from the Amunah, to apply it into the details of the Chabad, the understanding, the nature of the person, the tachton within the person, and then from there and all the other keiches until in Maisa as well, then when you come into engaging with the world, it's also with that type of nature where you're looking to elevate every particular medium that and technology that the world itself has, that it, for what its nature is, should be revealed of what its true being is, and its nature should be used for Hashem's sake. So it's a different approach, it's a new approach in publicizing Hashem's name in the world. Al-pi al-nal, or al-pi rather, is oich muvan. Based on this, we could also understand, was the Teires of Hashem Tov anal is nizgal geworden durech kvektushes mer vicham yadmor. Why this Teire of the Baal Shem Tov regarding bringing godliness into the world and elevating every detail in the world was revealed by the Frierdiker Rebbe. Val by kvektushes mer vicham yadmor hat me gesehen bepoil. Because by the Frierdiker Rebbe we saw this in action. Wie der Ashgach al Yoine hat him geführt b'chol mokim l'shakin shmei sham, where the Eibishter brought him to all kinds of places to bring Hashem's name there. L'farsim alakus by them to publicize Hashem's name in the world. Kipshutai in the ganze Welt, literally in the entire world. Ubefrat durch seine shluchim chulu b'chol katzve tevel, and especially through the Rebbe's shluchim in the entire world. On euch der person is given b'chol oifanim. And here as well we see that publicizing Hashem's name was not only in the general sense, but to bring it down onto every level and every place. Sei durch megal sein die tiefste inyanim in Teires Chassidus, both by revealing the deepest, the most profound points in Chassidus. Sei durch mefarsam sein inyani Teire, and by publicizing matters of Teire in general, nigle on Chassidus, the revealed aspect of Teire, the secrets of Teire, in verschiedene Sprachen, in many languages. Bis lamata b'yesa, bringing it to the lowest level for tinekes shenish buchulu, for people that are a child that was captured, that has no clue about his Yiddishkeit. Bis peilen auf Yidden zu hitten Shabbos, taras ha-mishpache, to keep Shabbos, family purity, legen tefillin, to lay tefillin every day, v'chayetze b'zeh, and the like. Was durch dem peilt man auf dem Yidden. By this you can affect the Yid, as bei ihm soll sich der Herren der Aniya Yomi L'Diticha. That Yid should see and sense the fact that he is born today. Wird geboren als a Yid, a lebendige Nefesh, he's born as a Yid that's alive, with a living being, as ein ganze Metzias, is Torah and Yiddishkeit. As explained at length in the Sikha, what's true life? Not two entities, one that enlivens the other, but that the life is the very existence of what the person is, the existence of Torah and Yiddishkeit. Und das is noch mehr memaya. This hastens even more the Geula bepoil, b'mheira v'yameinu, to redemption, speedily in our days, durch Mashiach Tzidkenu, when es wird sein begoli the latest am Yisrael, when then we'll see in a revealed sense the birth of all Yidden, Cholagam Yoldot Tzion es Bonai, that this is the birth of all Yidden, b'mheira v'yameinu mamish, speedily in our days.